All right, my name is David. I'm an alcoholic.
David.
My turn. Let me see. Yeah, so literally right before I left my house, I live in Pasadena, and right before I left, me and my wife got in an argument. So I got in the car and was like, of course that happened, and then I was like screamed fuck really loud, and then I said a couple prayers, and then I thought that the timing was really funny that I'm coming to lead a meeting, and uh, that is what happened, of course, before the meeting. So yeah, I my sobriety date is May 16th, 2011. I start a lot of shares like that, and I think it's because just like being a younger person in Alcoholics Anonymous, if I don't say that, like everyone will come try to 12-step me after the meeting, and like they'll, which is nice. But 11 years of that, and it's like, all right, let's can we just talk? I think I was trying to think of why I do. That's like one of those traditions from the area I got sober in, but I don't. Anyway, so yeah, I have I guess my home group is the Thursday night San Marino Men's Stag meeting. I don't know. Does that meeting have a name? Is it just the San Marino Men's Stag?
Yep.
I guess it's just the San Marino Men's Stag. I started going to that a few months ago. Me and my wife moved to Pasadena like 2 days before everything shut down. We moved there March 13th of 2020. And I was like, oh, new area, a bunch of new people. I'll go to meetings and blah, blah. The whole world fucking ended. So, it's been a crazy few years, and some of the best so far, actually. Although there's been a lot of, issues. So I got sober when I was 19. And I definitely, somebody up here was saying like I didn't want to. I didn't want to end up here. My sister is 3 years older than me, and she got sober when she was 16, and she was the one that brought me into the rooms essentially. And she dragged me to meetings for a while, and I had this kind of idea that I was going to go to meetings and like test positive on a few piss tests, get my parents to fuck off, and then I was going to, go back, do my thing. And something happened along the way. Yeah. And I stuck around, obviously, which is very strange. I think the fact that I can even say that I got in an argument with my wife is a win, that when I came into the rooms, like, my only hope was that I would OD. Like, that was the only thing I had going for me, because what I was doing was so fucking miserable, and I didn't have the balls to kill myself, and I couldn't stop, and I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. There's this cycle in the doctor's opinion that really beautifully outlines like the spiritual malady and the physical allergy, and this cycle that alcoholics go through where we have these moments of, oh fuck, I've just completely ruined my life, right? You wake up in the morning, you remember all the shit that you've done for the past few weeks, and you realize you got to do something about it, right? The book calls it a firm resolution, something like that. And with all my willpower, I make this decision to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to stop stealing from everybody. I'm going to stop sticking needles in my arm. I'm going to stop, fucking, all the shit that we do. And then like all of that willpower, for some reason, which works well in other areas of my life, right? I mean, at that time, it wasn't working so hot in a lot of areas. But a lot of the time that'll work out, right? If I decide that I need to make something for dinner, I'll probably just go ahead and make something for dinner, right? I have the willpower to do that. That willpower will fail me when I try to stay sober on my own power, right? Lack of power is my dilemma, right? Like drugs and alcohol were the solution to this problem that I had and have, that life isn't good enough, right? And that I don't feel okay. There seems to be this manual for life that everybody got, and they skip me. I don't know. And this shit is fucked up and confusing, and I don't know how to do it, right? And And that's my general life problem. And drugs and alcohol for me fixed that really, really well for a long time. Because, you know, the book talks about oblivion, right? Like, and I think that's such a perfect, like, that's such a perfect word for it, right? Because like the first time I OD'd, I realized that like the time right before you die is like the best. Like right before you die and your heart stops beating is like the greatest feeling ever. And that for me is that illustration of oblivion, you know. So yeah, I think the fact that like 19-year-old me would look at me and be like, you got fucking married, you loser. First of all, but you know, the fact that I have anything more going on than just like, I hope that I get a really, really powerful batch and it takes me out, is a lot. It's saying a lot, you know. My life looks very different than it did then. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's very hard. But you know, for the most part, you know, like everyone said, like our, you know, happy birthday, guys. I don't know, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
I love the year birthday. Like it's when I first got sober, I saw someone take like a lot of years, and I was like, that motherfucker is lying, first of all, and everyone in here is a fucking idiot. And then there were people that were taking like 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and I was like, that is like maybe possible. Although like up until Alcoholics Anonymous, I would string together like 4 or 5 days tops. And then like that spiritual malady would really start to eat at me. Right. And like, once that sets in where like, I can't be here and not be fucked up, then it's game over for me, you know? So yeah, I definitely didn't want to be here. My sister dragged me in, and I was the guy that was nodding out in the back of meetings for a while. And I thought that everyone thought that I was sober, and they super didn't at all. But yeah, I would sit there, and nobody said anything other than like, hey, keep coming back, man. Here's a cigarette. You know what I mean? Like, and like, here's a cup of coffee. And like, that was what I needed, you know? Like, you know, and I remember there were people that spoke about drugs and alcohol the way that I had experienced drugs and alcohol, right? I have a friend that says that she was drowning until she found alcohol, right? And then as soon as she drank that, she could fucking breathe, you know? And my experience with sobriety without the steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, and most importantly, God, is that. Right, it's excruciating. I remember I would sit there and these people would talk about drugs and alcohol the way that I did, and then they would talk about sobriety like it wasn't the worst thing in the world, and that was mind-boggling for me. I'd never seen anything like that. And they had this light in their eyes. These people were alive, and they were enjoying themselves, and they were laughing, and they were, you know, giving each other shit, and it was fun. And it was there's something attractive about Alcoholics Anonymous. It was the fact that these people were alive, you know, and they were speaking my language, you know, which was even more surprising. So I stuck around for a little bit. I asked a guy to sponsor me, and I was really scared. And he was like, he said that he would be honored to sponsor me, which is, I still remember that being really like kind of heavy for me. So I started going through the work, and this was actually in a different fellowship at the time. I was willing to do most of the work in here. I had a really powerful 5th step experience, and I got to the 9th step, and I was like, I could do some of these, and I made some amends. And 10 and 11 seemed like no, I don't know. I'd rather like try to get laid or like do anything else. And so, you know, I sat there for a while, and I had this experience where I continued to stay sober, and I don't know why I stayed sober, but I continued to stay sober. My life continued to grow, and I was more miserable than ever, right? And like, this disease doesn't give a fuck whether you're sober. Like, you know, like my experience with alcoholism isn't that like I get sober and I feel better. My experience with alcoholism is that I get sober and I feel significantly worse. And the longer I'm sober, the more excruciating that is. Now, if you're new and you're like, what the fuck? Why? I thought this was supposed to be better. It is better. It's better because of the work that we do in here and the steps and this connection with our higher power that we get in contact with, right? But without those things, my experience with sobriety is pretty bad. And at 5 years, I was ready to stick a gun in my mouth, you know? I was what they call a dry drunk. And, you know, the furthest away from a drink I had ever been, and I saw alcoholism clearly for maybe the first time, you know? I really, really saw what I was up against, right? And you know, it's funny because like the big book is like really, really black and white about the language that it uses, right? Like in front of every step is a series of death threats. They explain the very, very simple thing that you have to do. And then they're even kind enough to be like, you should probably experience these things after the step, right? A sense of ease and comfort, right? Like these kind of things. You know, for whatever reason, I kind of missed that. Like, I think it was a reading comprehension issue. But I was about ready to call it quits. And there was a small little intuition that maybe I should write some inventory. And I had gone through the first 3 steps with somebody, I know, right? I had gone, maybe it's like everyone that had been fucking telling me for years that I should do that. But I like didn't pay attention to them. I'd gone through the first 3 steps with somebody, and I had a written inventory, and I ended up reading it to somebody else and then finishing the steps with that guy. And I was at this point where like the ABCs were locked in place, right? I saw what I was up against. I saw that, you know, the rest of my life was going to be a very slow, painful death, right? And I wasn't going to enjoy a whole lot of it. And I saw that I had little to no power over that, right? I saw that I had absolutely nothing that I could do about that. This thing was going to fucking eat my lunch and there was nothing I could do about it. And I thought that maybe God could help, maybe. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about this program, is that like, that's all we need to make a beginning, right? Like you see these people that talk about God, and I thought that language was really like scary, I guess, when I first came in. I was raised with like very weird conflicting religious beliefs, and so I didn't like that language. And you know, what they said was like, hey, like, is there maybe something that isn't you? Because you're running this shit into the ground, you know? And I had to concede that, and then they were like, cool, let's say a prayer and like let's start doing this work. And so yeah, at that point I was willing to do all my amends, and I went through a list of a lot of amends that I had never made, a lot of financial amends that I had never made, and that experience of going out, paying the money back, making amends to these people was really when this whole thing clicked for me, and my mind and my heart changed, right? In spite of me, right? Like all it was is that I was willing to do this thing, right? And at the end of that, and through that period of making amends and going down this list, like I began to trust God more, right? Because every single amends I've ever done has been scary and terrifying and awkward, and I hate it, right? And every single amends that I've done has been freeing in its own way. And at the end of this process, all of a sudden I was a different person. And you go down the 9th step promises, and it was like, oh my God, like this shit is really working, you know? And then as soon as I started doing that, I started implementing 10, 11 out of the big book in my daily life, you know? And those promises started coming true. I think the 10th step promises are some of the most underrated promises in the whole big book. Yeah, so that was kind of what really shifted it for me, man. And like what I needed to see was that like this disease was going to kill me no matter what my life on the outside looked like, and no matter if I had like a bunch of like really cool friends or whatever, you know, or money or anything, you know, no matter if I went to therapy or not. Like I needed to treat this thing, and I really for the first time saw what I was up against. So yeah, since then, yeah, like I said, you know, I've been able to, marry a woman that I love very, very much, and we have a baby on the way. And in January, the end of January, I'll have a son. And it's incredibly scary, and also really, really exciting. And we're my timer's about to go off, and we're I guess just trying to figure it out. And the past couple of days have been a little bit rough. And honestly, like, if I'm being honest, a couple hours of the past couple of days have been a little bit rough, Like, when I'm really, really honest, a lot of my problems are probably like an hour or two, maybe a couple times a week. And like the rest of my life is this really full, like, beautiful thing, and I have these relationships with people that are deeply meaningful, right? And I think a lot of, like, what I was really looking for was meaning, like I needed this thing to mean something, this thing of life, and I found that here, and I found a group of people that love and care about me, and that, want to, like, even sometimes are like, hey, you're a good friend, like, that was so far removed from what I started out with. The type of friend that I was that, like, I would steal $20 from you and then help you look for it, and then go to pick up with you in the car with the $20 I just stole from you. That is a true story, and that's all the shit that I was doing, and like, yeah, so my life looks pretty good today, and it isn't about, like, the things that I have, which isn't a whole lot. But no, it's about the people in my life and the relationship with God that I have today. And sobriety isn't excruciating for me anymore, and it's because of that. It's because of the steps and because of God. So yeah, I think that's about all I got.
Right.